This is the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark chapter 8. Jesus began to teach those who are gathered that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He said all this quite openly. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." He called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "If any of you want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it. And those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. For what does it profit them to gain the whole world and forfeit their life? Indeed, what can they give in return for their life? Those who are ashamed of me and of my words, and this adulterous and sinful generation, of them the Son of Man will also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." This is the gospel of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Y'all sure about that? Want to say thanks to that one? All right, you may be seated. Because that's how it goes. We do these little liturgy things, and we read a really tough gospel, and we all say, "Thanks be to God." That's how I felt when I actually turned to this week's gospel. It was a couple weeks ago. I was on the phone with Pastor Dan, talking about some campus ministry stuff. And he's like, do you think you'd be able to preach on this so-and-so Sunday? And I had only a few hours before dropped out of the Birkebeiner race because there's no snow, and it's hard to train for a race when you can't train for a race. So I said I wasn't going to do it, and then I was like, yeah, I'm actually free that weekend now. Then I read the gospel and was like, because I don't know you all, and you don't know me. And when you're preaching about something really challenging, it helps to have some sort of relationship with the person who's going to kind of slap you in the face with Jesus' words. So now, here's the deal. It's always hard for me because I go out through this campus ministry stuff, and hopefully by the end you're like, yay, campus ministry, I want to support that. But it's really hard when it's Mark chapter 8. You're all going to leave going, I don't like Pastor Ben at all. So let me just say this. I'm doing my best to go with Jesus' words. If you have a problem with it, you're going to have to take it up with Jesus. Okay? Just go talk to him about it. I'm just the conduit today. When I was a little kid, my dad, Ronnie Morris, he's a good dude. My dad likes war movies. And I remember as a kid, even to this day, my dad will every once in a while dust off the movie Patton. Any of you remember that movie? It was like 1978, won the Academy Award. Anybody remember that? Come on, Norwegians, give me a real hand raise here. Okay. George C. Scott. My grandpa, who was a World War II vet, hated that my dad liked that movie because Jimmy hated Patton because he hated being in that war. But I remember the beginning. Does anybody remember the beginning? He walks onto a stage, there's no background, and he just goes, "America loves a winner." And that's true. The whole movie sets the stage for the entire thing because Patton's kind of crazy, but he believes that America loves a winner. And America does love a winner. We love the Olympics because we like watching our country win gold medals. We didn't do as well as other countries did. Norway always kicks our butt in the Winter Olympics. But we got the Summer Games where we just clean house every time. And we like the Super Bowl. And you Scotties had a hard year because you lost your quarterback and your team stunk and wasn't a winner anymore. I'm from Detroit, so I don't ever put hope in football. And he's about to get political, but we elected a president as a country because the guy promised we'd be winning again. And Americans like that. We wanted to win again. America loves a winner. Mark chapter 8. If any of you want to be my follower, you have to lose your life. I find it really funny that Americans, we love to talk about ourselves being a Christian nation and love to be the winners at everything. Because those don't go together, do they? Following Jesus and winning, that's not how this works. So what do? That's my sermon. I hope you all had a great time. I'm going home. Support your campus ministry. But seriously, what do? What does it mean to follow Jesus? I'm not saying our country is unique in this. Every country likes winning. Nobody likes losing. The Jews, unfortunately, have been, in some ways, history's biggest losers. Became slaves in Egypt. They came into their own land. They got to have a country for a while. But then the Babylonians and the Assyrians took over the two halves of their kingdoms. And then they got to come back, and they had their country for a while. And then the Greeks came in under Alexander and took their country. Then Judas Maccabee, the hammer, freed them all, and they had their country again. And then another group of Greeks were coming in. And so then this is truly what happened. They sent some envoys to Rome, and they're like, can you help us with this Greek problem? And the Romans were like, sure, we'll help you. And they landed their armies on the coast and marched into Jerusalem, and they helped the Jews beat the Greeks back. And then the Jews were like, thanks, Rome, you can go home now. And the Romans went, you know, it's kind of nice here. We're not going to leave. And that's how the Romans came in to win. So the Jews have been telling this story forever. We will have a Messiah, which means a king, an anointed one. And he's going to be like King David. And he's going to win. Because Israel loves a winner. And he is going to punch back the Romans, and we are finally going to have our own kingdom. And they've been telling this story for hundreds of years now. We're going to have a Messiah. We're going to have a Messiah. We're going to have a Messiah. And sometimes they had a different word for him. We're going to have the Son of Man. We're going to have the Son of Man. It's going to be awesome. Then he shows up. He's a rabbi from Galilee. His name is Jesus. And he says, I am going to die. And Peter is like, that's not the right script. Israel loves a winner. Jesus says, get behind me, Satan. And he tells everybody, if you want to be my follower, you have to pick up the cross. You have to pick up the symbol of shame and subjugation and Roman domination, and you have to carry it. Because if you want your life, you have to lose it. And if you lose your life, paradoxically, you're going to get it. Because you can't exchange anything in your body and life away anyways, because you're not God. 2,000 years of that, and I don't think we figured that out very well. There was a German pastor during the Third Reich. And if you remember, what were the Nazis, what was their big slogan? When they saluted, they'd all yell, Sieg Heil. Does anybody know German here? Sieg is German for victory. Hail, victory. Hail, winning. And Dietrich Bonhoeffer was one of the few pastors who decided, maybe this Nazi thing is bad. Because most pastors went along with it. Most Lutherans went along with it. But not Bonhoeffer. Bonhoeffer spent some of his time in America, but not with the winners. He went to study at Union Seminary in New York City, but he ended up going to a Black Baptist church in Harlem, and he learned the spirituals. He learned the songs of slaves, the songs of conquered people. In the win and lose situation of the world, the song of the losers. And in that, he heard the voice of God. So he went back to Germany and he started a secret seminary where he trained pastors who would resist Hitler. Then he got involved. He was a pacifist, but he got involved in the bomb plot on Hitler's life, and he got caught. He got outed. And they took him to the Flossenburg concentration camp in Germany, in Bavaria. And right when the Allies were about to liberate that camp, Hitler put in a personal phone call and said, before that camp gets overrun, hang Bonhoeffer. And so on an April morning, they took him out, and they didn't have much because, the war had decimated Germany, and so they gutted a piano and used piano wire to hang him right before the Allies liberated that camp. Bonhoeffer had this to say, and I think this is a really important quote from him. He said, following Jesus is not so much timidly avoiding sin as it is actively doing the will of God. Following Jesus is not so much timidly avoiding sin as it is actively doing the will of God. It's, what time is it now? Almost 10 o'clock. If you were to drive on I-90, 10 hours west of here, you'd get to that beautiful little American mecca called Waldrug. Anybody been to Waldrug? That monstrosity on the prairie. I love it, though. I go every time, and I go backpacking out west a couple times a year, and I always go to Wall. But if you head south from Wall, you will hit the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, the poorest place in our country, the third poorest place in the Western Hemisphere. And if you go to south a little more in that reservation, you'll hit the town of Wounded Knee. Wounded Knee is where the massacre happened over 100 years ago, where just after Christmas, Chief Bigfoot's people were intercepted by the U.S. Cavalry, and a Hodgkins gun opened up on men, women, and children in the morning, and they took down an entire tribe of Lakota. They left their bodies in the cold, and then a few days later dug a mass grave and dumped them all in. If you're on the hill where the mass grave is, and you head about a half mile away, you'll see Wanikiya Episcopal Church. Now, Episcopalians, those are high-class Christians. You probably thought a beautiful church, but this is not a beautiful church. This is a cinder block box with a roof that is in dire need of repair. And inside of it, you'll see a tiny little humble fellowship hall where the tile is peeled off. And you go around the corner to a poorly painted little room with a rusted-out 55-gallon drum wood stove. This morning, a couple hours ago, my internship supervisor, Reverend Harold Eaglebull, woke up about 4 a.m. He wakes up every morning to go pray outside, no matter what the temperature is, in the Lakota traditional way. And then on Sundays, he's 74. He'll have shuffled his way from his trailer the quarter mile or so to the church, and he'll have started the wood fire in the wood stove, because in 2018, a Native American church still heats itself with wood. America loves a winner. But in the story of America, nobody's lost more than the Native Americans. Land, culture, language, religion, people. The life expectancy on the reservation is 55. No group of Americans has served in a higher percentage in the armed services than Native Americans. Nobody is underfunded quite like the Native Americans. Harold, my supervisor, was in the 101 Airborne in Vietnam. He used to say everybody would jump out of the planes and yell Geronimo, but he would jump out and yell Custer. That's his one joke. And I laugh every time. So Harold has started up the wood stove. He's probably filled up a couple buckets with water because his trailer doesn't have running water. So he's got the church warmed up, and he's probably brought the buckets back so they can flush their toilet. And probably around now, people who have the gas money to do it are gathering at Winikia, which is Lakota for Messiah, King, Episcopal Church. Maybe it'll be 2 people. Maybe it'll be 40. You never know. Sometimes it's none. And when it's none, Harold still does the entire service by himself. Preaching to nobody, singing by himself, and taking communion. Harold's 74, and it's negative 10 degrees today in Wounded Knee. I have never in my entire life met somebody who follows Jesus the way Harold does. Which is why in 2 weeks, your campus ministry is heading out there for spring break. And we go there, we don't go as some big service trip, because we've got really nothing to give. We go there to experience what life is for Harold and Charlotte and Tuesday and my big old Lakota family out there. And we go alongside, we go with Common Ground, and we go with the students from the Native American Student Association. Most of them are not Christian. And we go on this trip together to be transformed. Because we believe when we sleep on that cold floor, and every year I tell my students, like, we need to keep the wood stove filled at night, and every year they all just sleep right through it, and we wake up cold. We don't get hot water. Their lives are transformed, being in the presence of people who have picked up their cross and followed Jesus. People who are not concerned with winning. Our students are caught up in a world that cares about winning. I'm caught up in a world that cares about winning. Y'all are caught up in a world that cares about winning. We've got 2 political sides that only ever care about winning. Our children fear at school because we have a world that cares about winning. I think it's time for the church to be full of losers. I think the world desperately needs a bunch of losers. People who are just tired of a world that cares about winning. How can you be a loser for Jesus? What's your cross? Y'all want to put up a big sign on this church that says losers meet here every Sunday? Do you want the Westby, is it y'all the Norsemen? Where is it? Do you guys want to have a bunch of 0-11 teams? Let Viroqua beat you. Not Viroqua. Is that your rival? Did I guess it right? Viroqua! Oh. I don't have great answers to this. I know this. I try not to think about campus ministry in terms of the other campus ministries. I think God's working through all of them. I also know that one of the campus ministries' mission model is to recruit the athletes and the pretty women, because others will follow them. I find that to be creepy. Just creepy. I love our campus ministry because it's got all kinds of people in it. One of my favorite stories is one day after worship. Ryan comes to worship every Sunday. Ryan is pre-PA. He wears his NRA baseball cap. And his car still somehow has a Ron Paul 2012 sticker on it. Libertarian as the day is long. And Wes is our Pride Center working transgender student. And Wes and Ryan went and got ice cream after service together. Neither was convinced that they had to win an argument with the other person. They don't agree on anything. And they went and got ice cream together. And to me, that is the best story about why your campus ministry matters. What a bunch of losers. I hope to God we will always be a place that leads by losing. Losing arguments, losing ourself. Maybe next time you see those headlines about the church is losing all of its members, rejoice a little bit. Maybe next time the Packers lose, can you do that? No, you can't do that. He asks too much when he comes to visit us. I pray a lifetime of losing upon you, a lifetime of crosses, a lifetime of burdens, a lifetime of actively following the will of God. Because I also pray a lifetime of the fullness of Christ into your lives. And I thank you for being a church that supports our campus ministry, where we try to help students lose their lives so that they can gain their real lives by following Jesus. Christ's blessing be upon you. Amen.